Oh, hello, everybody, and welcome back/welcome to season 2 of Foxy Boxes. That's right, it's finally happening. I've always said that the series will be coming back, and it's now happening. So much has happened and so much has changed since the last episode of Foxy Boxes. I want to thank everybody who's still here for sticking around. And I just want to, say I've been meaning to restart this series for a very long time, but it's never been the right time. There's always been too much going on. I've had a very busy year, changed jobs, moved house, so I wanted to make sure that I got this down when I had the time and I was in the right frame of mind to actually work on this again. So there's a couple of things we're going to be doing differently with Foxy Boxes for this season to make sure that it goes better. First of all, I kind of offloaded things a bit. So part of my problem, I suppose, was that I was originally making series as a way to teach myself how to do stuff, and I wanted to do all the stuff myself so that I could learn how to do it. Turns out, I guess I did learn something from it in the sense that I now know that I'm not good at everything, and I probably never will be. Texturing, for example, is not my forte. So, I'm delegating slightly this season. I've learned that that's a good thing to do. So, joining me on the project now, as a sort of official members of the project, is Noodle Soup, who was originally doing the music for Foxy Boxes, as I'm sure many of you know, Alex Bullivant, Noodle Soup. He's worked with me quite a bit over the last year for my new job, and he's also going to be partly responsible, or we haven't quite worked out exactly how it's going to work yet, responsible for managing the project and directing some of the storyboarding and stuff for the game. And I'm also being joined by Duck Jr., who is going to be doing the textures and the models for the large part for this project. That this is not to say, because I still like the fact that this is such a this series is a way for myself to learn from the community and for the community to learn from the videos, that I will not be accepting textures or models from viewers, but it'll be Duck who accepts them. So they have to sort of fit that style that he'll be going for. And, you know, with Noodle Soup, I'm sure that he'd be happy to accept sound effects if we have any sound designers watching, or suggestions for storyboards. That can all still come through the video. And obviously, we are now in 1.13.2. This is Minecraft 1.13.2, and commands have changed so much. And it's amazing the stuff that we can now do with commands. So we're gonna be doing some pretty cool stuff, I hope. Some things that you might not have seen before, some things that you have seen. I want to experiment and, try out what we can do with the new commands. There's two side effects of this. First of all, the format of the screen is going to change a little bit. You can see that we now have this plus Atom. We're going to be using Atom for our data packs and Minecraft for our, world. And what else? So the funny thing is that commands have changed a lot, but my job is now game designer and programmer for the Minecraft Marketplace, which uses Minecraft Bedrock Edition, and Bedrock Edition still uses the pre-1.13 style of commands. So, like block data instead of data merge and stuff like that. So my head is kind of torn, like flipping between these two languages all the time. So I'm probably going to make some weird, silly mistakes, and hopefully you guys can catch that. So, without further ado, let's get started. The first thing that I really want to try out today for the first episode is something that's kind of been bugging me for a while with Foxy Boxes, is that it's a first-person game, because that's what Minecraft is like. And, it's okay, first person will work, but it's very different from the kind of platformer that I sort of was thinking about when I was making Foxy Boxes, and I was thinking it would be third person, and now I think it might be possible to do a third person perspective, to use the player as a camera and have an entity as Reposer, the main character of the game. So I want to play around with that a bit today, because I really want to make it work, but I don't know if it will work. There's definitely ways of doing third person cameras. I've been talking a little bit with Red Nomster yesterday about some techniques that I want to explore today, and there are some limitations which might not make them correct for this game. So one of the techniques that Red Nomster was talking to me about was minecarts. You can put a player in a minecart, and the player's MBT data, if they walk forward or backwards or left or right with WASD, their motion tag of the player actually changes even though they don't move at all, which means you don't get any kind of screen jitter, so you can read the WASD components off the keyboard without the screen flickering, which is awesome. And you can then teleport the minecart itself around to move the player. However, the issue with this is that when you're stood inside the minecart, firstly, I don't think there's a way of detecting space. Like, you can't tell when a player is jumping, and we need a jump mechanic for this game. And secondly, if they press shift, they get ejected out of the minecart. There's no way of preventing players from getting out of a minecart, and there's no way of putting a player automatically into a minecart. And this is a big flaw with the system. Red Nomster said what he does is if he detects the player is out of the minecart, he teleports them to a room with an invisible minecart in their head, and there's just a message in the room saying right-click to continue playing, and then that will teleport the minecart back to wherever the camera is. So the problem here is that our maximum kind of inputs are going to be WASD and possibly right and left click, which means that we don't have the ability to... the thing is, for Foxy boxes, we want the ability to jump, that's one input. We want to be able to have two types of attack, that's another two inputs, and then possibly crouching, which would be a potential fourth. So we need at least three inputs, which means that we need either space or shift as well as right and left click. And unfortunately, while we can probably get right and left click working inside the minecart, shift will eject us out and space does nothing. So we're an input short. There's two potential solutions for this. Additional solution one is using a horse. I don't know if this is going to work, but you can ride a horse like a minecart. Oh wow. Can you... This horse is in the air, but I'm able to move him. That's interesting, and potentially causes problems with the WASD thing we wanted, where we don't want the camera to jitter when they press those buttons. I did not expect that to be a thing. Maybe if it has no AI, you can't move it. I don't know. But the thing with the horse is that there's a jump bar. Did he actually jump? I'm just curious if he actually changed height there. So there's a jump bar, and I'm wondering whether... I have a feeling that is not going to be stored in MBT. If it is, then we can detect the jump, the fact that the jump has happened. So I'm just looking at the tags for horses, and I actually don't see anything about jump height. I think it's like creeper explosion fuses. I don't think it's stored in the memory as MBT. I think it's just live input. So the tags for horses are bread, eating haystack, tame temper, owner UUID, armor items, saddle items, and the variant, according to the chunk format page. So I don't think there's actually a way of detecting jumping, and if it's not even changing vertical height, then we have an issue. I'm looking at my Y coordinate right now. Oh, we apparently actually do jump. Our Y changes. Even if I just tap it. It's exactly 68. If I hold it down, it's also exactly 68. That's interesting. Actually, hang on, I would have thought that there was a jump height property for horses. Okay, so there is a jump height. The horse actually jumps, though, which means that our perspective from the camera, I guess, would change. It doesn't, weirdly, I think it makes us tip back, I think, as the horse is rising up. It's actually shifting the camera backwards, which might look a bit weird when you're jumping. Let's look at the only other option I can think of. So spectator mode is the only other thing I can think of. You can see that when we move around, our X and Z changes. I would imagine that our motion tag is changing while this happens. We could do a test. Well, obviously our motion tag is changing, but I would imagine that most of you know that if you scroll up with the scroll wheel, you can change how quickly you fly around. And if you scroll down with the scroll wheel, you can slow your movement down. This is the slowest you can go. If you scroll down one more, then you actually just stop moving. In this stopped moving scroll wheel position, it might be that our motion tag is still updated. We can check and see. However, this gives us 2 degrees of freedom. I think that's the term I'm thinking of. 3 degrees of freedom? I don't know. We can use WASD. We can use Shift to lower the camera. Let me just speed myself up a little bit. We can use Shift to lower the camera. We can space to raise the camera. But if we are frozen in place by lowering the scroll wheel, this happens. I'm curious to see whether my perspective changes when I shift. It does slightly dent down when I shift. Okay. Even in first person? Yeah. I guess that's to be expected. It's not terrible. But we now, as spectators, are missing the ability to right or left click because spectators can't punch things. The one thing that they can do is spectate things. So I think I can right click on this horse, or I can click on the horse to spectate it. And then you shift to get out. So it might be possible to get WASD, shift and space, and then click as our inputs. As a platformer where you're not moving the camera with the mouse, it seems a bit weird to have a button on the mouse, but at least it gives us an extra input. So we could detect when the player is spectating the entity, hopefully, by having an entity like floating in their face the whole time, and then kill the entity to eject them back out of it if they click it. That's my plan. We're not even talking about like the camera system yet. This is just trying to get the player as a camera still reading controller input. So let's have a look at our MBT for motion when we're in spectator mode and see if this is going to work. Okay, wow. So this is how it's done. We execute as the player. We store the result to a score, and then we specify the player and the scoreboard to put it in. Then basically that's going to be the result of whatever we do next. So we then run data get entity closest player motion 0, which is the first value of the motion array, and then a scale of 1 million. Which is currently 0. Scoreboard, input WS. I love the new tab complete, by the way. So if we move forward a bit and then run that command again, still 0. Interesting. Just move this over to our function file so it runs every tick, and we can reload, and now my rotation is being stored as I move the camera. That works, but when I change that to motion 0, it stops. I wonder whether players don't have a motion tag for some reason. Just want to see what happens if we try running this on the horse instead, and then nudge the horse. Well, that's not a good sign. Because this horse is doing just fine. Oh, bugger. I'm wondering if this is because player movement is client-side, but entity movement is server-side. If I ride the horse, it stops because the movement of the horse gets put to the client. Now the server's not responsible for its position anymore, so it has no motion tag. What the nuts is this? No! Buggeration. Huh. So when you're in a minecart, it puts your data client server side. Interestingly, if I move forward, I get a score of 1, and if I move backwards, I get a score of -2. You move backwards faster than you move forwards. So it looks like we have 3 methods, all of which have different problems. Can't jump in a minecart. Actually, let's test that. I'm gonna store the Y coordinate, the vertical coordinate inside the tag instead, and up this a bit. And we'll see whether the jumping is registered at all. Oh, it is! Wait, now what? Now my motion is stuck. Until I get out. Does that number become positive if I get into the minecart from underneath? Nope. And now it's stuck at that? But it changes when I jump. What? What if I set this back to the X now? Oh man, this is some janky stuff. Nope, nothing. Set it back to the Y. It goes positive when I jump. 7841 seems to be the not jumping number. When I'm in the minecart, I can't jump. And I guess it goes to 0 because I'm like hanging in the air because I'm flying. Okay. Dang, I thought we had jumping in the bag for minecarts. If the minecart moves while we're in it, does our motion change? I'm gonna make it go up. 0.0, 0.35, 0.0. No. No, it doesn't. Let's go back down. What to do about this? Okay, new question. I'm gonna execute at the closest player. Execute as the closest player at the closest player. We're going to teleport itself to a fixed coordinate. So let's go with 73, 67, 66. Just constantly teleport them to this location. Plus, yeah, that'll do. Okay. So we'll reload. Okay, so we're snapped to this position now. If we try and move, we get this juddering that we're trying to avoid. Let's go into spectator. We're still snapped into position. Now let's scroll down. All the way down. And then scroll up 1, so we should be able to move. Oh, there's still judder. It's slight, it's better. It might not be noticeable. If I go down all the way, then we can't move anymore. But then we also can't detect input. I've got one last option here, which is to put 6 area effect clouds around us in spectator with the scroll wheel all the way down bar 1, which is going to be weird to tell the player to do, I guess, but not as weird as pressing shift exiting the game, which is put 6 area effect clouds really close to the player and change, like, detect which one they're the closest to. So if they try and move left or right, they should shift ever so slightly in that direction and they might be considered closer to one of them. Okay, so I created a new function temporarily. It basically just creates 4 area effect clouds around the player, and then every tick we summon them again, and then we just say into chat the name of the closest area effect cloud, and I guess we'll see what happens. Now it works, although it still has a preference for which one's nearest. We've got 4 area effect clouds. It doesn't seem to change when I move. The one thing I can think of is that when you teleport a player, their motion is set to that location, so I might have to execute as at S at S again before I do the say command. That's the one thing I can think of. Otherwise, I guess I don't really know why this isn't working. Oh, now we're getting change. Walking forward judders me between the default -X and just X. Going backwards just sticks me on -X, -Y, and Y. So it's kind of working. Let's just go down to the lowest movement level and then scroll up 1. Does it still work? It triggers once. That's interesting, but not... If I hold down W, it's just predictably... That's interesting. Going right, left, and backwards. Let's have another area effect cloud in the center as well. X, -X, Y, -Y. Okay, so it's kind of every now and again it's moving us. What happens if we put these even closer together? I don't actually know what the smallest value is for movement in Minecraft. It seems to be giving me the same amount of times where it returns the value. That's not responsive enough, unfortunately, for this. If I scroll up 1, do they come more often? Not really. I'll scroll up a lot. The furthest I can go, it's still returning the center every other input. Plus we're getting a lot of jittering. Although weirdly the -Y is not causing that problem. Okay, so I've been thinking about this some more, and I have one last idea. There's a certain downside to this idea, and that is that it involves keyboard rebinding, like control rebinding, but I want to experiment with it, so bear with me for a second here. We're in the minecart. We're going to use the minecart technique, which means that we can detect our WASD keys, but we can't shift or space. When we're in a minecart, in survival, we have 2 other keyboard key options. There's Q to throw an item, and there's F to swap an item into the second hand slot, the offhand. Very unfortunately, since the move from achievements to advancements, you can no longer detect when somebody opens the inventory, which some of you may remember from the previous season, was being used to open the menu. So we were detecting when somebody pressed E using the taking inventory achievement, and then placing a portal block in their head to force the inventory to close instantly. Unfortunately, the E key can no longer be detected as an input because there is no advancement that makes up for that. There is a inventory change advancement which can tell when items in your inventory move or when an item takes durability, but you can't tell when somebody just opens their inventory. So unfortunately, we have 2 keys on the keyboard, but we need 3. So this method would basically involve rebinding Q or F to space for jumping, then having probably O and P as the left and right attacks. So O would be linked to F for the hotbar swapping, and then click or possibly right click would go on the P key. So the downside of this obviously is that people have to rebind their keys, which I'm not very happy about having to make people do, but I really think that I want to experiment more with the concept of a third-person camera, and I think the third-person camera's effect and the way that it creates the design of the game could be worth the key rebinding. I have a feeling that you could probably make a Foxy Box's profile on your Minecraft launcher, because obviously different profiles have different settings, so it might be possible to rebind your keys just for the Foxy Box's profile. It may even be possible, I'm saying this having not tested it in the slightest, to have a little executable program packaged with Foxy Boxes, which if you just double click it, it creates a Foxy Boxes profile for you. I'll have to look into the possibility of that. I feel like it might be possible. I have a feeling that profiles are probably just stored in JSON format or something. Anyway, so what we're going to do is for the next couple of episodes, we're going to play around with third-person cameras and third-person control to see whether it's going to feel as nice as I think it will feel. And if at the end of this we decide that it's just like the whole concept of third person is not working, then we'll abandon the hotbar switch, the key binding switch idea, and just switch back to first person. But I really, really want third person to work for this game, so we're going to do that. Because I'm about to move to Stockholm, I don't know if people know this. I'm moving to Stockholm. By the time this video is out, I will be in Stockholm. I didn't want to start this series at a point where there was a break in the videos, because I would feel like people would think that I just started the series and then just dropped it again. So I have the time to start work on it, but there's going to be a period while I move house where A, my computer is in a box traveling from one country to the other, and B, the computer may break on the way there. So by the time you see this, I'll be in Sweden, but as a result, there's going to be a couple of videos where I appear to not be responding to comments in the videos, like to suggestions in the comments. So just bear in mind that I want to continue taking input and feedback from people in the community. The videos will eventually catch up with my output process, so I'll be able to respond more quickly, in the next video to comments on the video before. But just so you know, I'm not ignoring you guys. I'm just building a little bit of a backlog right now. So yeah, next episode, I think the plan is to look at some good ways of detecting these Q and F keys predictably, and also choosing whether we're going to go with click or right click, getting the camera to have some simple movement following a player, and converting the WASD movements onto an armor stand, so we can see all of that happening. In the meantime, Duck is currently designing the spaceship that is going to be the hub for this game, the level selection lobby, and he's also we're all trying to decide on an art style. There's a couple of different art styles we could go with for this. So I think he's planning to mock up a couple of different styles, so that we can kind of see what we like the best. The art style is going to decide on quite a lot for the rest of the game. Like if it's blocky and pixely and low bit, then the music will have to reflect that. Some of the camera choices and some of the sort of player movement will have to reflect that. But if we go for something more higher resolution, that'll change the music, and it'll change how smoothly we might want to animate our third-person character. So thank you very much for watching. I'm excited to get this series back on the road now that I have the time, and 1.13 is offering so many cool opportunities and making some of the things that we were doing in the last season a lot easier. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.